Thank you very much to the previous presenter. I feel quite overwhelmed, and I have the feeling that they can show for 150 results, and I feel that I'm in a situation where I'm striving for one result, and I'm still on my way, and I have a feeling that I may be going in totally the wrong direction, because they are aiming at Web 4.0 and I'm aiming back at Web 1.0. So what I'm presenting here is actually a Web 1.0 approach and an application. And what you see in the graph, quite complex graph here, is a layered approach which illustrates pointing back to this 1.0 approach, because the reason for this is that I have had the feeling that people who are expert in specific fields, they don't have control over this digital environment. And I'm in contact with scholars, and they are completely out of this digital world. They don't understand it, they don't use it, they escape from it. They are specialists in their own fields, and somehow I'm trying to create a bridge from the digital world to their world, and this is what this presentation is about. I have been talking about a two-tier architecture. That means two layers. And the middle layer you can see there with the title Digital Virtual Collection. This virtual collection is something that, in my view, doesn't really yet exist. And it means combining resources from different institutions and different countries, and also different domains, archives, libraries, museums, and research, and bringing them together around a theme. So I have built a modest platform for this. This platform is good enough for prototyping and experimentation. And I'm seeking now cooperation mainly with two countries, actually one country, Iran, and I hope to be able to extend this to Afghanistan. And now looking at what happens in Germany and comparing it to what the situation is in Afghanistan, you might say that they are two worlds very far away apart. What I'm working with really is occurring outside of the museums, outside of the museum walls. The museums are resources. They have all kinds of materials, the physical objects, manuscripts, expertise, of course. But these should somehow be channeled outside of the museum. And what then happens outside of the museum? I see that there are two things that I'm interested in. One is the building of identities. And this is a continuous process. And for example, if you take the situation of Afghanistan, you will have conflicting identities. And these conflicts actually lead to actual confrontations, which may lead to dialogue, but it may also lead to imprisonment or arrest at least. And in the worst case, it can be even more dramatic. So the building of identities is one thing. How do you build your own environment in a situation where there are considerable risks involved? And the second theme I'm interested in this, what happens outside of the museums, is creating a space of freedom. Because you can't change society, at least not rapidly. Societies do change, but it may take decades. And while waiting for this change to happen, people still have to live. So it's important in a situation like that to be able to create a space of freedom where you can live genuinely and authentically as an individual. And what I'm working with is really to support these two processes, the building of identities and creating this space of freedom in a very controlled outside environment. So now the museums and academic institutions, they have a lot of resources, and somehow these resources should be made accessible, and this is then what I'm trying to do. And a part of these resources are language related. They are printed books, partly, and then there are a lot of handwritten manuscripts. And somehow these have to be transferred into the digital domain. There are, of course, then images, miniatures, and from the printed works, an important part are poetry. And in this space of freedom which people create, poetry is very, very important. This space of freedom, it's important for the people who live there, but it's also important for outsiders like myself. So this has been immensely meaningful for me to encounter this world, their space of freedom. And it has actually led to the situation that I identify more with them than the outer space I live in here in the Nordic countries. So this is what has happened. I feel that I have been immensely privileged to be in contact with these people and their wonderful culture, and the fact that how important this culture is for them. So culture is not some kind of an entertainment, but it's really their lifeblood, and it's something they want to transfer to the next generation, also in exile or after migration. So this is actually a demonstration of this outer layer, I call it the narrative layer, and this is the step back to the 1.0 environment. This is a basic website, a basic system I have created. The idea is that researchers and scholars could be able to provide input to this kind of environment. Regrettably, there were technical problems. I can't show how this actually works. But what you see here on the screen, it's a normal YouTube video, and it is synchronized with an embedded part there to the right. And there you have text in Persian and a translation. And when the video progresses, the text changes. And if you jump back on the video, you get the corresponding text there. I believe this can also be used for presenting museum objects. So if you film something in a museum and share it on YouTube, you can synchronize text with that video. And for example, the National Museum of Afghanistan, they are sharing quite a lot of YouTube videos. So this may be something they could use to somehow provide more information in association with the YouTube video they produce. This is just one small thing. This was actually, this small application was created in association with the University of Helsinki. We got small funding for a small thing. Its aim is mainly to support language acquisition, but it can be also used, for example, in a museum context. Well, I have very little time, so I can't really go into details of this. Then, as I said, texts are a very important part of the resources museum have access to, and as I have good cooperation with Iran, and especially the Iran Art Museum, I've got their cataloging information. So I will use that as a resource to build a prototype. And in addition to the cataloging information, I got some texts from the Tabriz Islamic Art University, and the intent is to join the cataloging information and with the text. So I see I have 57 seconds now left of my presentation. As I'm not myself fluent in Persian, I have to use all kinds of tools to make the language accessible to myself. But in addition to making the language and text accessible to myself, I can also use it to process the language, and it supports the building of applications. There is just one key technology I would like to point to, and then I believe I have to stop. And this is handwritten text recognition. Now you should remember these keywords, because you can, in Finland actually, and in many countries, this is already done on an industrial scale. So you have handwritten texts, you can process them using artificial intelligence, and what you get is a digital text you can use. So my intent is to present this technology, and my hope is that Persian manuscripts could systematically and on an industrial scale be processed in this way. I would have liked to continue, but time is running, so I have to stop here. Thank you very much.
Right. Any questions to Mika? Maybe you can go back to your first slide still and explain a little bit what is that cryptic third layer. You made a promise there, but it wasn't quite explained. Which one of the three do you actually mean?
You mean this? That one is most to the
bottom one.
The bottom one.
The one, the bottom one is the one we should be looking at. As
Yes,
the third layer.
yes.
Okay.
Well, I would like to. I pointed out the handwritten text recognition technologies. Then optical character recognition is for printed materials, and that's a well-established technology. I assume many of you already use them. I bought myself a text scanner and a commercial program that can process Persian text. So that's standard technology, and it's very easy to use. Then this NLP stands for natural language processing, and I actually had a list of standard technologies that I have been able to use myself. These are also very basic technologies. There are these kinds of resources for all languages, including Persian. So you just take this. You basically use you need a digitized text, and then you have a short code, and by using this code, you can get interesting results from the text. For example, I wasn't able to show, but I have created vocabularies from texts. And then the CV stands for computer vision. So these are then resources that can be digitized and then ingested in this virtual collection that is in the middle layer. And on top, that middle layer can then be used to create the narrative layer. So this is the approach.
Do you see a role for museums in the digital virtual collections layer as well, or is this something that is already part of the academics?
Sorry, the virtual.
The second layer, the digital virtual collections. Is this where do you see that museums come in there? Is it their role, or is it?
Yes, they own these materials to a large extent. For example, Iranian museums have large collections of Persian manuscripts and miniatures, let's say. So yes, the museums definitely have a role there, but the results are not shown inside museums. The results will be shown in this digital domain, and they can be accessed then by anyone and anywhere.
But text corpora, that's really something more that digital humanities scholars are busy creating these days. Do you think that these should be parts of the museum's remit?
Absolutely. And the idea of having a team, it combines the academic world and the museum world. So there should be no, division between them. They should work hand in hand, creating these teams. The problem is that currently there is no vision of this kind of work. There is also no funding. I feel a bit proudly that I'm doing some pioneering work, but I'm afraid that I will do it for a while and then be forgotten. Someone else will find these ideas then by themselves. This is what I believe.
Well, it's important then to leave your source code and your applications for further reuse. Are there any questions for Mika in the audience here? I can't see any questions coming from online. If not at the moment, then thank you very much.
Thank you very much.